Good morning, everyone. We are back for the second talk for Diabetes Day. And now we're going to be talking about fiber, a powerful tool for blood sugar stability. Whitney Wischki is here with me. She is a registered dietitian with TMC. She does many of our diabetes classes. So welcome, Whitney. How are you today?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you. How are
Great.
you?
So, Whitney, I'm going to go ahead and pull up your PowerPoint for you so that you can go ahead and get started, and then I'll join at the end. You do have an online audience that is watching. So if you're watching from home, please give us, if you've got a question, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will ask Whitney at the end of her presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, hi, everybody. Welcome. As Maya said, my name is Whitney Wischki. I'm a registered dietitian. I do outpatient nutrition at TMC, and I'm also a diabetes educator where I get to teach the diabetes classes. Today, we're going to talk about fiber as a powerful tool for blood sugar stability. And I want you to please keep your minds open and think about how easy it is to get fiber in our diets and listen to all the things that fiber can do for you. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to give a review of today's objectives. The first one is we're going to define the microbiome, gut health, and leaky gut. We're going to explain what the microbiome can do for you, how to improve the microbiome with fiber, and why is Butyrate a superhero, and how to incorporate fiber into your diet. I'm also going to try to throw prebiotics and probiotics in there. Well, thank you for your enthusiasm. Okay, and we're going to start with a really fun video. Okay, do we have sound? Do we have sound? I don't think. We may have to start over. I heard deeper. Uh-oh.
I'm not sure why it's not playing this.
Uh-oh. Is there something down here that we can open? No. Sorry.
Do you know what they're saying?
There's a lot of information, and it's a good explanations of the microbiome. Yeah, I do know what they're saying, but it's put in a very
It says watch on YouTube. YouTube.
Yes, the invisible.
Yeah, I can't figure out the sound right now.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Also, you guys, maybe you can write down the name of the video.
Yes, the invisible universe of the human microbiome.
Whitney, maybe we can try to pull it up afterwards for folks in a separate browser and show everyone, okay?
Okay, that might be a good idea. Okay, well, anyway, so what this is showing us is that our bodies are only 90% human. I mean, 10% human, 10% human, and 90% microbiome. So bacteria, our gut is filled, our gut and our nostrils, our ears, our scalp, our skin, we're filled with, I believe, 200 to 500, I'm going to find my notes because I pulled some of this off of the video. But we have more bacteria in us than than pretty much the human population in total. Our bacteria, okay. Sorry, guys. There was so much information in this video that was fantastic. You will, okay, well, okay, so we'll quick go through, but the microbiome happens, okay, so essentially, when you're a baby and you're in your mother, you are able to, as you breathe in, you suck in the amniotic fluid, you're also consuming her microbiome, her bacteria. When you're born, you have the bacteria in your gut of your mother all the way to your great-grandmother, which is really cool because if anyone has ever told you, well, you've never met your great-grandmother and yet you have many of her traits, that's why. The bacteria makes you do certain things. So our bacteria is very instrumental in making us who we are. The bacteria does a variety of things, but with most recently, with an increase of C-sections and an increase of mothers not nursing their children, increase of use of hand sanitizer, which that alcohol kills all the bacteria on our hands or wherever we might put the sanitizer, we kill off our defense mechanism. Also, the use of antibiotics can kill off our gut bacteria and other bacteria. Also, in today's society, we're eating a lot of processed foods. Those are without nutrition. We're consuming a lot of chemicals, fake sugars, fake flavors, fake colors, stabilizers, and that is causing inflammation in our gut. And a lot of our processed foods have less fiber. And so moving on. Oh, here we go. Gut health. So there are 100 trillion microbes in our body consisting of bacteria, fungi, protists, and viruses. Microbes aid in the digestion of a wide variety of nutrients, nutrient absorption. Microbes have enzymes that help us absorb B vitamins and vitamin K. This is interesting because remember, vitamin K is for blood clotting, and B vitamins are extremely important in your neurologic system. They help to make hormones. They help to make enzymes. So B vitamins are extremely important. We can't absorb B vitamins without our gut microbiome. Okay, if you think about that on a bigger scale, we are seeing in our society an increase of depression and mental health disorders. So as the microbiome is killed, or we have a weaker microbiome, and we're unable to absorb B vitamins, the result is increased mental health disparities. So our microbiome is super important. The microbiome coordinates communication between the gut and brain to regulate mood and sleep and aid in the immune system. Okay, so when you have a weak microbiome, you may result in, without the healthy bacteria, the intestinal barrier loosens and allows toxins through, which is an example of localized inflammation producing systemic inflammation. Does everybody here know what inflammation is? Do you have a good understanding? Diarrhea, constipation, runny nose, diabetes, heart disease, irritable bowel. These are all examples of inflammation. So the leaky gut syndrome is something that we're coining the phrase, but this is a hypothetical condition. It's based on the concept of relative intestinal permeability. So we know that without the bacterial barrier, the gut is allowing toxins through. So the mucus lining of our intestines is designed to absorb water and nutrients from our food into our bloodstream. But some people have increased intestinal permeability or hyperpermeability. That means their guts let more than water and nutrients through, and they leak. And of course, that causes more inflammation. Certain chronic gastrointestinal diseases result in leaky gut, allowing larger, sometimes toxic molecules through. And part of the job of your intestinal lining is to act as a barrier to bacteria and other infectious agents inside the gut. The barrier is an important agent in your immune system. Chronic low-grade inflammation caused by the toxins may be a factor in many diseases, including metabolic disorders, such as obesity and diabetes, arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, asthma, and fibromyalgia. I am surprised when I do see a plethora of different ages of people in my outpatient clinic. We ask for basic health history, whatever is affecting the person. And I'm amazed at how many of the people who come to me with GI symptoms also have asthma. And that just rings to the fact that we need to heal our microbiome. Okay, here is a fun slide to compare the healthy versus the impaired gut lining. You can see that nutrient absorption, you can see the nutrient absorption, immune system inflammation, and gut bacteria balance, where we have the normal healthy intestinal barrier is tightly fitting and nothing's getting through. And so your gut can work the way it needs to work. Because remember, your heart has one job, and that's to pump your blood, to carry oxygen and nutrients through the blood vessels like a raging river. When that raging river is able to carry oxygen and nutrients to all of your cells can do their jobs efficiently. When your blood can get to your GI tract, the tight-fitting, sealed GI tract, the blood goes in with the oxygen and the nutrients, and then your GI tract can do its job. So increased circulation leads to increased metabolism, which is, metabolism is digestion and absorption of nutrients. We heard from Dr. McComb how to increase our circulation. Oxygenation, deep breaths and stretching and working those muscles, that's all part of manually increasing our circulation. So it's all part of this digestive information. And if you exercise more, there is a symbiotic relationship. The more you exercise, the more oxygen and nutrients and blood flow, the more you feed your gut microbiome, and then the microbiome will reverse itself and help you out. So in the leaky gut picture, you can see inflammation makes things not fit so well together, and the toxins enter into the bloodstream, and that's a harder situation to deal with, because you like to wake up in the morning and feel refreshed. But if your gut microbiome isn't super happy, there's a chance that you'll wake up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed. So what contributes to poor microbiome, leaky gut, and inflammation? Well, as I mentioned, lack of physical activity. And Dr. McComb explained that physical activity doesn't mean you need to put on your headband and do Jane Fonda aerobics. Instead, just while you're sitting in your chair, pumping your feet, the soup cans, while you're sitting in your chair, get your arms moving. This is really hard. I have people who hold soup cans or water bottles, and they just do arm circles forward and back. And I say, oh, you want to do it for half an hour a day, but you may want to start out with 10 minutes. I talked to a patient recently, and she said that she was hurting so much after 5 minutes. So I said, okay, don't give up. As Dr. McComb said, don't try to do the hardest thing first, because then your muscles will be sore and you're not going to want to do it again. So start small and get stronger and do it every day. I know she said 5 days a week, but with diabetes, don't you count your carbs at every meal? Don't you check your blood sugars regularly? You take your medications regularly. We heard how the GLP-1s are only effective if you're taking them as prescribed. Same thing with exercise regularly. And doesn't everybody have like 10 minutes a day that you might be watching TV? Or even if you're sitting reading a book, get your legs pumping, do those ankle circles. That way you're getting into the habit of movement every day, 7 days a week. Okay, unbalanced nutrition with excess simple added sugars, excess sodium, and excess added animal fats and low fiber can all affect the microbiome. Okay, so what we're encouraging is whole food products. Added sugar, that's candy. When people have diabetes, they say, oh, I have to go to a low-carb diet. Well, low carb may mean just eating whole foods because there's no added sugars. If you're drinking soda and you stop drinking soda, that's a low carb diet, right? The added animal fats. Animal fats are what have cholesterol. Did everybody here know that?
Yes.
Okay, because cholesterol is made in your liver. Therefore, you're only going to find cholesterol in foods that come from something that has a liver. So, that aha. And the other aha is that fiber is only found in plants because it's the structure of plants. But anyway, going back to cholesterol. So cholesterol is only going to be in meat, fish, poultry, and dairy, which is okay. But when you add added animal fats, those are solid at room temperature, saturated fats. Those added animal fats are butter, cream cheese, sour cream, lard, bacon, and sausage. And many of those also have added salt. So that added animal fat may have negative, as your cholesterol goes up, may have negative effects to your gut microbiome. The simple sugars and the extra animal fats can suffocate your gut microbiome. And low fiber. Well, we're going to talk about how fiber helps build your gut microbiome up. And so if you have a low fiber diet, you eat too many processed foods, then you're not feeding your gut. And what happens when people don't eat? They die of malnourishment. And we want to take care of, nurture those little guys because they're there to help us. and symbiotic relationship. Excess sodium. What does sodium do to us? Sodium makes us retain water. There we have a state of inflammation. If you have a blood volume that goes through a blood vessel like this, and then you consume a lot of sodium, the blood volume gets larger. When it tries to pass through your blood vessels, it pushes on the blood vessel walls, which causes inflammation. Honestly, if you're wearing a pair of pants that are too tight and that waist is cinching, it's really pinching you, at the end of the day, you have a red line around your waist. And you're very uncomfortable all day. That's how your blood vessels feel with this enlarged blood volume. And it takes longer for the blood to pass through the blood vessels. Kind of like, does everyone remember Tom and Jerry? And remember how they would chase each other through pipes in the house? And you would see the cartoon of the pipe, and it would get bigger when there was an animal going through. Okay, so that's like high blood pressure and consuming too much sodium. It's harder to pass through. Okay, so you understand how the sugars, the sodium, and the saturated fats can cause inflammation and leaky gut and a poor microbiome, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Another thing that can be harmful to our gut is excess alcohol use, stress, antibiotics, and gut infections. Okay, so alcohol. Alcohol is, we can say it's a fermented product, it's natural, but essentially it can do harm to us. Excess alcohol use really hurts our gut microbiome, and the bacteria has a harder time functioning when they're drunk.
Yeah.
But there's lasting effects. Stress. When you're under a lot of stress, does your stomach hurt? Oh, God bless you. Are you at risk of poor digestion when you're under a lot of stress? Yeah, that is very harmful to our gut microbiome, because our little guys who are absorbing the B vitamins to help our mood, no matter what they try to pump out to improve our mood, the stress is overpowering us, and so we're suppressing what they want to produce. And we're hurting them. Not like we can control stress, but we can help it by doing yoga and deep breathing exercises and eat whole foods. Okay, antibiotic use. I understand that we all understand that antibiotics have a place, they're necessary. But what we're seeing as a society, and I think we're over this hump, but there was vast overuse of antibiotics. And what does an antibiotic do? It says in the name, it kills the bacteria. It can't always decipher between the friendly bacteria and the bad bacteria. So after an antibiotic, there's a time period where you have to regrow your friendly bacteria. Research has also shown that something as simple as a colonoscopy can hinder the gut microbiome for up to 6 months. You know that the prep for a colonoscopy is taking that solution and kind of washing everything out. Well, it also but don't worry, don't think you're not going to get a colonoscopy. I mean, there's a reason for it. Their colonoscopies are important. But afterwards, feed your gut the right foods so that you can help replenish them. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Gut infections, those also make sense. They kill off your microbiome. So what contributes to a healthy microbiome? Improved digestion and stable blood sugars. Get moving, 10 minutes 3 times a day, or somehow getting that 30 minutes in every day. Include a wide variety of plants in your diet, vegetables, grains, fruits. And remember, with diabetes, you always want to count your carbs. We know that there's a lot of carbohydrates. I mean, if you're carb counting, it's 15 carbohydrates per portion. We're not going to get into all that. But there are carbohydrates or natural sugars in grains and fruits, and there are significantly less carbohydrates in the non-starchy vegetables. So that is why I wrote vegetables first, because you want to focus on your vegetable intake. Embrace fermented foods for probiotics to populate the gut with beneficial bacteria. Some examples of fermented foods would be yogurt, kefir, kombucha, miso, tempeh, sauerkraut, and kimchi. And I love Leticia included in your packets today. Easy fermented sauerkraut. So you can create your own probiotics. Probiotics are adding live active bacteria to your gut. So if you've been on an antibiotic, you can eat probiotics, introduce new bacteria to your gut, and those bacteria in fermented foods, there's bacteria, but when they knock on the door of your small intestine and say, hi, we'd like to visit the party, your gut microbiome, your bacteria open the door and they say, oh, you're strangers to the new bacteria. Oh, but you brought food, because probiotic foods or fermented foods have the live active bacteria and an arsenal of yummy foods. So when the new guys come in to join the party, they bring refreshments. And so your gut bacteria are more likely to welcome them in. It's also helpful to eat prebiotics so that they work together. And I'll talk more about prebiotics in a bit. We want to limit artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, the research is ongoing, but we are learning more and more that artificial sweeteners are linked to insulin resistance. So if you say, oh, I want something sweet, I'll just use the sugar-free option. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of research that's showing that these chemicals that are non-foods are causing inflammation. And so I don't want to touch too much on that, but it's your choice. I was just working with a woman, and we were establishing a meal plan for her, and we needed 2 carbohydrates at breakfast because she eats more at lunch and dinner, so we saved carbohydrates for those meals. But when we wanted to do 2 carbohydrate portions at breakfast, doing foods that she likes, we realized that we didn't have room for her coffee with a little bit of milk and sugar. So we chose to cut back a little bit at breakfast to allow for the small amount of milk, and then she chose to add stevia or an artificial sweetener of her choice. But that was the only time she was using it. So just like antibiotics, we know that they're going to harm our gut bacteria, but they're necessary. And we can always regrow the gut bacteria. So fake sugars in moderation, if you tolerate them, do have a place in your eating habits. But please don't be that person who used to use 6 packets of sugar in their cereal and now uses 6 packets of saccharin or equal in their cereal. Too much. Moderation. Please use your minds when you make these choices. So then the next thing is fiber, soluble and insoluble. This is what we were looking for. Yay. Okay, so fiber is found in whole foods. It gives fruit, vegetables, and grains their structure. There are 2 types of fiber. There's the soluble fiber, and actually, I have, so you have this information, but I just wanted to take the information off here. I like that you get all of this, but there was too much information about fiber. Prebiotics, soluble fiber is frequently considered prebiotics. So this is not a probiotic, but it feeds the bacteria that are in your gut. So kind of like how the probiotics that are naturally occurring in food, in fermented foods, come with food for your gut bacteria. Well, prebiotics are additional food for your gut bacteria, the new and the old. Actually, I'll get back to that later. Let me quick run through the soluble fiber. Dissolves in water. It is a gel-like texture. An example would be like legumes, beans. When you have those, you have a hard pellet that's a bean, and then you soak it overnight, it expands. And then you boil it for an hour, and it expands even more. How does it do it? Well, the soluble fiber is turning into a gel, and that gel is what has the health benefits. Soluble fiber promotes satiety, so it fills us up. Because if you think about it, it expanded a lot in the pot, but then when it gets into your gut, it expands some more. So it's taking up even more room. Soluble fiber, I like to think of as a wet sponge. It doesn't actually work like this, but it lowers cholesterol by binding it. So if you think of washing the kitchen counter with a wet sponge, that wet sponge going through your blood vessels and binding with cholesterol, kind of just soaking up all the dirty particles and helping to clean out the blood. Makes you feel really good, doesn't it? Like if you make certain food choices, your circulation is going to improve, and you're going to have more energy because you're not carrying around all that extra gunk. So that's a really cool thing about how it can lower your cholesterol. It does support your gut flora, and by feeding the good bacteria, it stabilizes your blood sugar. Soluble fiber is found in apples, beans, as in legumes, not green beans, but beans, split peas, lentils, legumes, nuts, oatmeal, sweet potatoes, and lentils. There's a lot of other foods that have soluble fiber. Pears are wonderful for soluble fiber. Brussels sprouts, fantastic. And chicory, I don't know if anybody here really knows about chicory because, well, they put it in the coffee in New Orleans, but chicory is also a good source of soluble fiber. Soluble fiber slows the food transit time by delaying stomach emptying. and it feeds the beneficial bacteria who produce butyrate. Okay, the next slide, we're going to talk about that. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Did we hear in the first presentation about GLP-1s?
Yes.
And how GLP-1s slow the food transit time? And yeah, stabilizes blood sugars. We'll get there. But I'm excited that your wheels are all turning. Okay, the other type of fiber is insoluble. Now, this does not dissolve in water. It promotes laxation. Yes, that does mean that it helps you to poop. Soluble fiber is kind of the crunchy stuff that you're eating, the skins of the apple, even the skins of beans, the crunch of nuts and seeds, broccoli stems, whole wheat bread versus white bread. The whole wheat is just a little bit crunchier. So that goes in, and no fiber is digestible nor absorbable. And so when you drink lots of water, that helps push everything out. So that's a good thing. This supports intestinal health because it helps clean out the intestines, pushes all the bad stuff through. It's found in whole wheat, leafy greens, quinoa, brown rice, and seeds. It creates bulk in your stool, and it supports bowel health. Okay, are there any questions before I go to the next slide? Yes.
Is it better to have stevia and trivia as opposed to equal?
You know, I hear that all the time. No, there is no better fake sugar, because what stevia is doing, it's extracting the active chemical from the plant. If you have a stevia plant and you put that in your iced tea, and that'll sweeten your iced tea, and then you chew and swallow the stevia plant, that would be great. But when you extract it, the chemical composition changes a little bit. An example would be aspirin. Aspirin comes directly from willow bark, from a willow tree. And willow, like if you make willow bark tea, throw the willow bark into hot water and it'll seep. That's perfectly healthy because there's the natural buffers that are in the willow bark. But when you extract the active chemical through titration, then you have this white powder, and we put it into a little tab. Taking too many of those aspirins might harm you. It can give you an ulcer. It can cause a brain bleed if you take like 10, 15 at a time. It's not exactly the same thing, but you understand the similarities. So all fake sugars are just fake sugars. They're chemicals that may cause inflammation. Now, the one that would be better for you individually is at a totally different level. When you choose a fake sugar, you want to choose the one that tastes the best for you, will satisfy you with the smallest amount, and does not cause an allergic reaction. I remember when Equal first came out, there were so many. I looked up at adults, because this is the early 80s, and I would look up at adults, and they're like, "Oh, I can't tolerate Equal. I get a migraine." And I had no idea what that person was talking about. But I'm hearing more and more that, some people don't tolerate Splenda or sucralose. So we individually have different taste buds and different tolerance levels to those fake sugars. So when it comes down to it, it is your preference of the fake sugar. And remember, the one that satisfies you with the least amount consumed. So if you need 3 packets of Equal and you only need 1 of stevia, well, then the stevia would be a better choice. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. And another substitute would probably be butter. like in your coffee as opposed to sugar. I mean, I'm learning. So, that's something what I was informed.
Okay, so butter is a saturated fat. Maybe if you used olive oil, that would be a better choice to have that heavy fat, but there's not a sweetness, and so it's kind of addressing a different thing.
Just a
But
little bit of butter, not too much. That's what I was told. Sorry.
okay, and it's your preference. Yes.
Well, he believes in putting MCT oil in his coffee every day, and I guess you got that from Dr. Oz a long time ago, right? So how do you feel about the MCT oil?
I think it's a preference, and how much are you adding? So that is, I want to say 7 calories per gram, whereas butter is 9 calories per gram. Sugar is 4 calories per gram. That's a whole different level. But flavor preference, and if you can tolerate less, that's fine. For health benefits, well, it's not going to make your blood sugar go up. But if you really can't stomach having a fat in your coffee, so it really does come down to preference. But stabilizing your blood sugar, yes, because it isn't a carbohydrate, it's a fat. Does that kind of make sense?
Is it healthy in and of itself? Like, let's say you didn't like it in coffee, but you put it a little drizzled on some stir fry or something. Would it be a good thing to do?
Well, health is all very subjective. So is it going to improve your health to add fat to something that you wouldn't normally add fat to? Well, it's going to cause you to gain weight. It's extra calories that you don't need. So it probably is not going to make you feel better. But like if you're stir frying, olive oil is always the best. Doing the plant fats are always the best to add to foods because they are a liquid at room temperature. And so when they're in your bloodstream, they don't cause any blockages and they're ready to use stored energy.
Well, MCT oil, as I understand it, comes from coconut oil.
Coconut, but coconut is a saturated fat. So it is a plant, but it's a saturated fat. So it's a solid at room temperature and may fall out of your blood vessels and start to line your blood vessel walls.
It does not have cholesterol because
Right. Nope. Because remember, the cholesterol is made in the liver, and coconut and palm kernels do not have a liver. But the MCT oil is still a saturated fat, so it will. We make a lot of cholesterol, so our cholesterol we make enough to share to hold the coconut in, so that it can build up and increase your cholesterol. So as cholesterol accumulates, I mean, this is a very simplified version of what's going on. But as your cholesterol increases in the blood vessels and saturated fats, so all the things that accumulate in when you get your lipid levels checked, it kind of reviews total cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, the good cholesterol, and the triglycerides. Triglycerides are not cholesterol; they're sugar fats. Triglycerides come from excess simple sugars, but they're stored with the cholesterol and the saturated fats in your blood vessels. So as that wall gets thicker and thicker, your blood vessels get smaller and smaller, which will increase your blood pressure because the blood is trying to get through a smaller area. So in that aspect, MCT oil would kind of be like adding 2 tablespoons of coconut oil to eggs that you previously had only used a small pat of butter. So the health benefit, it depends on what your goals are. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
can
yeah,
talk a little more at the end
okay,
about that too.
right. So so moving on. Thank you, everybody. So down at the bottom of the soluble fiber list, it says this soluble fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria who produce butyrate. Butyrate is a superhero. And I have a little bit more I wanted to read you. I didn't put it in here. Oh shoot, now I'm not going to find it. Okay, well, butyrate is a beneficial compound. It's called a short-chain fatty acid. It is produced by a healthy microbiota that protects and nourishes your gut lining. Butyrate provides an energy source for colon cells or colonocytes, the cells lining the large intestine or the colon, and protects against colon cancer. Butyrate is anti-inflammatory. It increases your insulin sensitivity and decreases insulin resistance. Butyrate has antioxidant properties and protects your brain. It strengthens your intestinal barrier. It stimulates mucus secretion in the intestine. Remember that we want a good mucus lining in the intestine. And that, because that's like the cozy comforter to keep your gut bacteria happy and warm and cozy. Kind of gross, mucus. It stimulates the absorption of fluids and electrolytes. This is so magical. This is wonderful. In the news, we always hear about superfoods and, acai berries, and there's resveratrol in red grapes and red wine. We hear about these nutrients that are in special foods, like pomegranates and garlic. But what about us? Can't we produce anything that's going to be a superfood? We do. It's butyrate, which this just makes me so happy because, like, if there were dinosaurs around, they would actually choose to eat us for the butyrate. Yes, we have something to offer. So eat your fiber so that you'll be nourishing. But what?
Tasty to dinosaurs.
Right. So butyrate is wonderful. So I'm just going to read this because it's not on here. Butyrate is produced when the good bacteria in your gut help your body break down dietary fiber in your large intestine, in your colon. It's one of several short-chain fatty acids which are named for their chemical structure. Butyrate plays an important role in digestive system health by providing the main energy source for your colon cells. Butyrate is butyric acid, a commonly chemically modified version of butyrate, sometimes is used in foods and supplements. Other types of butyrate are ethyl butyrate, which is a flavor enhancer, hydrocortisone butyrate, which is a corticosteroid, and sodium butyrate, which is used in supplements. So we can find butyrate in foods such as fruits, legumes, vegetables, whole grains, and resistant starches like boiled potatoes and rice. So are you hearing that these are just normal foods that we would normally consume that have fiber? So you don't have to go above and beyond, eat something extra. Just make sure that you're eating whole foods, because whole foods have amazing benefits to feed and nourish our gut bacteria. Okay, so how to incorporate fiber in your diet. Check food labels. The best, most high fiber foods would have 5 grams of fiber per serving. I want to tell you though, this is really hard to find. A slice of bread that's high fiber, considered a high fiber bread, like Dave's Killer, that's only 4 grams of fiber per slice. So getting 5 grams, I mean, it's really hard to do. So let's just choose foods that are whole foods and consume a lot of them so that our fiber adds up. Incorporate vegetables into every meal. You can eat sandwiches, salads, and soups. To get vegetables at breakfast, you can add vegetables to eggs as an omelet. I do not recommend celery in your oatmeal. But I'm trying to think of other ways you can get vegetables at breakfast. I think, yes?
Eat a salad every morning. I mean, I started doing that. I was one time doing something with someone, and I was asking, I'm coming in a breakfast rut. Tell me what you eat for breakfast. I want to change up a little bit. She said, well, I eat salad. Do not eat salad for breakfast.
Well, I'm glad
she was vegetarian too, and I didn't realize that at the moment.
But I want to tell you that there are many Asian countries that do have a salad at breakfast. It's normal in Japan. Yes.
I add broccoli to my smoothie.
Okay.
Wow.
And I like broccoli, but it doesn't overpower the smoothie, so.
Okay.
It works.
That is an option. Yes.
I do egg bites. I put like grated zucchini, the little sweet peppers, cut them up, and make them with the eggs.
Okay. Perfect. So there's some easy things to do, and you prep those ahead of time, so it doesn't have to be a long time to make things. You do them like on a weekend, and then keep them frozen or refrigerated. That's great. You can snack on fiber-rich foods, raw vegetables or nuts. You can choose whole foods over juices. Eat your fruit versus drinking it.
Yeah. Like orange juice, do the oranges.
Yeah.
Right. Because remember, when you are drinking a juice, gug. You bypass that first important stage of digestion, which is chewing. When we chew, we produce saliva. Saliva has an enzyme in it called amylase. Amylase is the body's first step for breaking down carbohydrates. When someone has diabetes and they have a hypoglycemic episode, so their blood sugar is tanking, what do? Drink 4 ounces of orange juice or 4 ounces of apple juice. Gug. Within 15 minutes, those sugars are going to get to your bloodstream. And so you want to think of fruit juice as a medication. And when you have the opportunity, eat your fruit instead. I mean, it's a little bit harder to hold a fruit versus just drinking a glass. But think of all that sugar that so quickly passes down your throat, you hardly even get a chance to taste it. While you chew it, you're tasting it, you're enjoying the texture, and you can feel all the fiber going to feed your gut bacteria.
Does it depend on like if your blood sugar is high or low. Because if your blood sugar is high, I'm told berries are a better fruit.
They would.
Like strawberries, berries.
Right, and
banana
and it's all about portion sizes too.
Yeah, but there's a
So-
lot of sugar in banana.
Well, but if you only have half a banana is a carb serving. So yes, bananas are sugar dense, but we know that a whole banana is 30 grams of carbohydrate versus with fresh berries or melon, they are lower in sugar. And so you can have a whole cup of berries or melon for it to equal the same sugar content of half a banana. So if you're only going to eat like a few strawberries, then that's a lot less than a cup. So you have the satisfaction of chewing those 3 giant succulent strawberries, but there's going to be a lot less sugar in that. Yes, excellent point. But remember, if the berries are frozen, a half cup of frozen berries or melon would be 15 grams of carbohydrate because they're more concentrated. Okay, so the next thing is begin your day with fiber. Consume whole plant foods. That does mean you're going to have to push that plain bagel away or push that cinnamon roll off to the side. But eat whole grains and whole fruit and whole vegetables. That'd be great. And finally, very important, stay hydrated. To decrease constipation that may be caused by increasing fiber. We want to keep the colon hydrated. We don't want our gut bacteria to be thirsty. So drink enough for you to hydrate your cells and to hydrate your bacteria. Okay. Are there any questions?
I like to say
Oh.
that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks, Whitney. So I do have a couple of questions. One is about how many grams of fiber then are you looking to get each day? Because I know I saw there was the 5 grams per serving, but
Okay, so 25 to 35 grams per day is recommended. But that doesn't mean you need to have a fiber supplement. If you eat 2 to 3, 3 to 4 servings of vegetables, 1 to 2 servings of fruit, and 3 to 4 servings of whole grain each day, you're going to meet 25 to 35 grams. So essentially, that's eating balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner, having as many food groups, but choosing whole foods. So when you choose the whole foods, you're going to get enough fiber in.
okay, great. Now, do different foods with fiber impact your blood sugar levels differently? So for instance, I don't know, does fruit as opposed to a grain or a vegetable, do they have different impacts on your blood sugar?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, vegetables are not a carbohydrate-rich food. Non-starchy vegetables are great. They will stabilize your blood sugars, lower your blood sugars as you eat more vegetables, and not contribute to the blood sugars. So those are the best option for getting your fibers in. But you don't want to be afraid of eating whole grains or whole fruits, but always count them as the carbohydrate serving they are. Eat them by portion. Okay.
Well, because I think that answers part of the next question that we had, which was about, are all fibrous foods equally beneficial, or would some be worse for your blood sugar control?
Okay.
Glycemic index.
Oh, the glycemic index. So glycemic index tells us how quickly the sugars will get into our bloodstream. It's our glycemic response, how quickly our body recognizes the sugars and causes our blood sugar level to go up. Really, fiber is always beneficial. As we are feeding our gut microbiome, the bacteria produces butyrate, which is stabilizing our blood sugar. So pretty much there isn't one fiber over another. It just please eat your fibers.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, what about, and you would recommend that you spread your fiber intake out throughout the day then?
Yes, yeah. So having a mixture of soluble and insoluble fiber throughout the day is always great. But we'll find it in our foods, recognizing that there are fibers in the whole food. You are not going to have fiber in meat, fish, poultry, or dairy products, which we wouldn't expect fiber to be there. But if we make sure that we're eating more whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole grains at each meal, that will have benefit. And I think also what you were asking was regarding the better fiber. So you'll have the insoluble and the soluble fiber kind of in a variety of foods. And apple has the insoluble fiber is in the skin and the soluble fiber is in the meat of the apple. So you're going to have a little bit of both. In most plant foods, you're going to find both insoluble and soluble. And if you eat plant foods, you'll have a balance of soluble and insoluble. And all of it will have different ways of affecting and stabilizing your blood sugars.
And Whitney, which fruits and vegetables have the highest fiber? You know, because I know there were a couple of little examples on here, but I didn't know if you could provide us a few more examples of what are the high fiber fruits and vegetables.
Okay, so I have seen that, well, we know that apples are good. Bananas are very high in soluble fiber. Apple pectin is high in soluble fiber. That pectin is what they make applesauce out of. Pears are tops for soluble fiber. You're going to find a lot of fiber in certain vegetables like leafy greens, onions, garlic, asparagus, carrots, and then of course your legumes. Your legumes are wonderful food because they are a protein, a carbohydrate, and tons of fiber. The skin is the insoluble fiber, and the inside that expands is the soluble fiber.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna wrap up with our online audience. I want to thank you so much for being here today, and you can take any questions from the in-person audience. Thanks for being here, Whitney.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again. We are going to be continuing on with our talks that you'll see coming up. Tuesday, November 12th is Diabetic Foot Care Prevention and Treatment, and that is with Natalie Norum. She is a nurse practitioner with the TMC Wound Care. Then also on Tuesday, November 12th, we have biliary breakdown, understanding gallbladder disorders with Dr. David Liu. He is a TMC1 general surgeon. And then I also just wanted to make sure you were aware of the last diabetes class that we have for the month. It is on Tuesday, November 19th. That is navigating the intersection of diabetes and oral health. And that'll be with Melody Levitt. If you're interested in any of these classes, please feel free to give us a call at 520-324-1960. And thanks for joining us today. Take care.